welcome to a special interview here on the Motorsport 101 podcast. I can't quite believe I'm saying this. It's Ryan Nanny when he was on here all over again. Just being shocked and surprised by some of the guests that RJ O'Connell is able to pull on this damn Pokemon podcast as we do. But you've probably recognized this man on ESPN's Countdown to F1, the DNF podcast, the Channel 6 newsletter, the Shutdown Fullcast, all Mongolian tourism, the right time of Bomani Jones. This sounds like the Tiger Woods runoff when he's going through all the accomplishments and then Phil Mickelson goes, all right. It's Spencer Hall. Hello, Spencer. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I really identify with Phil way more than Tiger for a lot of reasons. mostly lining up on 18 with the tournament in the bag and then going driver and listening to everyone go, no!
Is that before or after somebody's put something on it? Knowing Phil, allegedly.
Knowing Phil, definitely after.
Just making absolutely sure on that one. So I mean, you got to start off first and foremost, because I credit RJ for a lot of these questions because he had to scramble to put this together as well in the last minute. So I love him for that. I'm going to kiss him after this is over. Most people will probably know you mostly from college football and your coverage of that. I mean, I love that Bomani Jones is the best college football rider in America, which
very kind of him.
It is extremely kind of him, but also probably accurate. But how does one of the most forward-thinking college football writers in the sport end up getting into Formula One, and not just that, but then being a part of ESPN's original programming for the sport? Because that's quite the leap, I think it's fair to say.
It is. I think an important part of being around for ESPN's first two seasons came about via knowing something about Formula One. That was a very big element, I think. I think they went around the room. Yeah, and they said, who do we have? And I was on that list of people who knew something about F1. So I managed to get in on the first two seasons of their coverage, which was fantastic. But how I got into F1, I do predate, not as a fanatico, but I do predate Drive to Survive. Although Drive to Survive obviously like rekindled F1 interest in me and a lot of other people on a scale that really didn't even compare to what was happening before. I came along on F1 sort of like through the Killer Years, which was this documentary that the BBC did about the most dangerous period in F1 history, like from say 54 to I'd say 84, right? Like around there, like the early prehistory. And it's horrifying and it's really dangerous and kind of appalling at times. And I was hooked. I was like, oh, it's great. It's phenomenal. This sport. Yeah, like that's probably doesn't say very much good about me as a person, but that was one of the things that really hooked me on it. And but even before that, though, like occasionally you'd see F1 on TV, and you know, I grew up watching the occasional Senna race, and all I knew is that Senna looked like he raced with God. It turns out that was very much the case. Yeah. So you know, you pick up little bits. I think there's a lot of us, especially my age, who came about with F1 as you knew a driver. You know, you knew a Hunt, you knew a Mansell, right? You knew a Senna, you knew a Prost. You know, and even that I didn't like Alan Prost because he had bad hair. Thought his hair looked stupid. That was it.
That's pretty low on the list of reasons why I've heard Alan Prost has been shit on. So I must say
this is a very innocent reason to dislike Alan Prost, and a very genuine one, right?
There's been more cynical ones in my time as an F1 journalist, believe me. So did you have a guy growing up when you got into F1? I was a Schumacher guy. I'm probably a little bit longer than you, Spence. I grew up a Michael Schumacher guy. I think Cam did as well, to a degree. Like who was
Schumacher? I grew up a Schumacher hater. I grew up respecting the hell out of Schumacher, but mainly as a Kimi Räikkönen fan.
That's fair.
Yeah, if you were Finnish, I was a big fan of you. Like I'm typically like, for some reason, I'm not a big nationalist when it comes to picking my drivers. But if you're Finnish, you automatically have an edge with me. That's like a modifier. It's like a +5. Yeah, because you're probably weird and you're probably pretty funny. You're gonna do at least one funny thing. My favorite driver was Senna. You know, like Senna was Like Senna was romance. And that's like the kind of, fandom you can only have when you're a kid, when you're younger. You don't necessarily look at the particulars. You don't dig into the, filthy details of the person's personal life. You just go, oh, that guy, he's cool. So yeah, that was my guy.
Completely valid reasons. I mean, I was the exact same way with Schumacher, the Scarlet Red Ferrari. The mythos of the Ferrari was what I learned. I mean, my dad was a huge Michael guy, a huge Ferrari car nut as well, so I completely can relate to that feeling. Now, I know you've known RJ for a little while because you've bumped into each other at the paddock.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that experience, and then I'm going to throw to you on the next question on this one.
It's very weird because I've listened to a lot of Spencer. I was probably the one that injected a little bit of the influence into this show. I am so sorry. But then one day I'm just I'm working at racefans.net. I get a credential to the Miami Grand Prix in 2022. And then all of a sudden I'm walking around between where the paddocks are and the entrance to Hard Rock Stadium. And there's Spencer. We bump into each other, and it's just hey, fancy seeing you here.
Yeah, there's a bizarre collection of people because at one point it's me, RJ, Jackie Stewart, Paulo Banchero. Paulo Banchero's there, and
sure it wasn't Pat Mahomes. According to Martin Brundle.
I mean, Brundle's seen more than me. So when he says it's Patrick Mahomes, I'm inclined to believe him, even if I know he's wrong, because I'm I don't know. He knows more about this stuff than I do. But yeah, we're all in the paddock at the same time, along with Jimmy Butler. It's a very, very strange selection of people who managed to wind their way into the F1 paddock.
Did you ever bump into Wemby at the 23 USGP in Austin?
I saw him. He's hard to miss.
No chance.
I've bumped into three people who I knew who they were instantly the minute I saw them at an F1 race. One was Wemby. The other was Shaq, because he's the only Shaq-sized shaped thing in the world.
Yes.
There's only one thing that's Shaq-shaped.
He is his own unit of measurement.
Yeah. They have the border fence between the sort of muster area of TV and mechanical stuff and all the logistics stuff. And then there's this road, and then there's the paddock in Austin. And I remember you can't see over the fence unless it's Shaq. And I just saw this head floating above the fence. And I thought, oh, that has to be Shaq with a biblical certainty. It's there's no other person. And the other person was Patrick Dempsey. Patrick Dempsey, aka Dr. McDreamy. Because, he came in and he smells fantastic. You're this is what a famous person should smell like, is Patrick Dempsey.
Porsche racing legend as well. And of course, we bumped into each other at Le Mans last year. And you're not just an F1 guy. You watch a lot of motorsports, I understand.
If it goes fast, if it goes fast, I'll watch it. That's really kind of the deal. And I feel like that's a Dale Earnhardt influence from a very young age. Is Earnhardt was super big. He was a Catholic race fan. By that I mean just universal. He would whatever was in the church he'd pray to, and that went F1, IMSA, truck racing, go-karts, what have you. I feel like he put a real high value on that. And when I was young, I read about Dale, really loving F1. And that means that as a kid, you go, well, Dale Earnhardt likes it. It has to be good. So, you pay attention, and that's how you learn.
Now, for me, being in the paddock, working an F1 event was just eye-opening. I've come to know that as I've gone into my job, more focused on sports car racing. But Spencer, what was the biggest change you felt since you started covering the sport more in depth, passing that barrier from being a fan to being an occasional writer to being in that environment with the people that make this work, whether that's competitors, other media, etc.?
The biggest change, I think, you go from being sort of wowed and completely awed by everything to really sort of trying to pick up the political wins. That's you sort of wander through and go, they don't look like they have as much money this year, right? You start to notice the particulars. You go, ooh, that race team isn't calling me back, or that race team is definitely calling me more. So they probably there's either some bad stuff happening or they need help. right, in the press. So you start to notice those kind of like journalistic-y type things, right? Vibe checks, where you go through the paddock and you see a driver and you go, ooh, you do some like kind of bullshitty journalism thing where you go, it looks like they feel good today, which isn't right, but you're going to try to do it anyway. Usually, sometimes I've been like, oh man, that guy looks like terrible. It looks like he's not going to win this race at all. And then, it's Charles Leclerc absolutely smoking a lap. And you go, oh, okay, cool. I guess I was totally wrong. So there's that. I think you kind of come full circle and you go, I don't know anything. Then you think you know a little something. And then in the end, you don't know anything. Like, absolutely nothing.
Yeah, spot on. Now, last month, ESPN said it won't renew its US TV deal after it runs out in 2025. So if this is it for you on Countdown F1, what's been some of your favorite memories of this chapter of your career? Because it's a pretty significant one.
I think last year's Austin race was the coolest. In terms of, we had a good spot, like we're right up by Big Red, right up on the hill. That was delightful. I think the coolest race memory is for an individual race was Lando winning at Miami, because that was very pure. That was genuine excitement on everyone's part, not just because it was Lando, like that obviously is big, but because it was McLaren, and it was McLaren winning big, and maybe a sign that we weren't in for the kind of Red Bull sweep that we thought we might be in for.
Absolutely. I mean, certain guests of that race aside, that was a pretty awesome moment at Miami, I gotta say.
Same weekend that Adrian Newey was announced he was going to be walking away from Red Bull as well. So if you want a sliding doors moment for how 2024 played out, even if it's a bit coincidental, that's probably the one right there, which is kind of wild to even think about looking back on it now.
Yeah. And it's also, it's Miami. It's relatively early in the season. Everyone's still covering it as in fine fettle. By the time you get to Vegas, everybody is kind of a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, endearing. That's a very endearing term in my world. But yeah, everyone was kind of a hot mess by the time Vegas rolls around both years in a row. That's not to say Vegas isn't a great race or it isn't fun, but bedraggled. I think everyone who's involved is just a little worn at that point.
Wait. That last year's was round 22 in a 24 race canon. That was the first 24 race season in F1. Not the first scheduled one, but because of cancellations in Imola and the flooding, last year's was the first proper 24 race season.
Yeah.
And as a member of the press, I'm calling this off the cuff, like, how exhausting was that at the end? Because it's tiring for me, and I'm working from home and occasionally going to an office in central London. Some of you guys are flying thousands of miles around the world. Just what is that like? Like, by the time you'll get into December, and we're talking about watching F1 races, which is just crazy. Because when I was growing up, seasons were done in October, and you got the whole autumn and then winter as an off season. It was crazy.
Yeah. I think for me, it's fine because ESPN, we're only doing 3 races. So you're only doing 3 races and you're watching the others. That's fine. If it's in the middle of college football season, so I was doing double duty, that's a little hectic. But at the same time, I think the ones that really, Vegas, there's an element of adrenaline just because of where it is, who's involved, the setting. You take everybody who's got, basically like perma jet lag, and then you throw them in a place where there are no clocks. So they're spent, but they're also kind of running on adrenaline at that point. So, and that goes for the media. I cannot imagine what race teams go through in terms of everything. A universal thing in motorsport. Like, this was fun having grown up going to some NASCAR events and reading about NASCAR and being more familiar. Going to an F1 event, it was very comforting to see that the thing that is a universal across all races and all motorsports is that when the race ends, everybody gets the hell out. That's it. Everybody instantly throws everything.
We're going home.
Yeah, shipping container or the next, right? Like, okay, we have to be in Dubai in 2 weeks. Let's go, right?
So someone who has to edit other people's audio and video who work for us at the meetings, you will never know how quick the other journos are like, this is the last thing on the list. We're getting the fuck back to the hotel now. Mm-hmm. We are not shooting this again. You take this video or we leave it. I could completely vouch for that. Now, I saw you on Blue Sky a minute ago as well, Spence. And
oh boy, what did I say?
Yeah, gassing up MotoGP. And
Yeah.
I mean, did you watch the season opener? And like, what have you made of MotoGP in recent years in general? Because I'm a huge bike guy. Cam is a huge bike guy as well. RJ kind of grew into it a little bit later on, but I mean, your general thoughts of MotoGP, I thought, were fascinating in the best way.
So this is RJ mentioned Le Mans, and Le Mans was a really eye-opening just in general in terms of institutional knowledge, because everyone at Le Mans also has their hands in something else. And that goes for the tire companies, right? Like there's Michelin. You can just, if you want to know who has their hands in multiple buckets, go to Le Mans and you can go, oh my God, these guys are doing everything. You know, you go to Ferrari and you go, there's an entire endurance team and it has nothing to do with the Formula One team. Like, and it's even run kind of differently. It's wild.
Yeah, it's run good.
It's beautiful. Oh, dude, they're awesome. the whole
they function.
They not only do they function, man. Do you know what it's like to be in a journo gig, any kind of media gig, where somebody comes to you and goes, "Would you like to talk to all three drivers right now?"
Yeah,
very much so. Yes.
Yeah, they're the best, and they're like, "Would you like a coffee?" And you're like, "I'm going to kiss you." Yeah, like that's
the level of media accessibility is 150,000 times bigger than what Formula One gives you. It's ridiculous. Even I'm relatively inexperienced at that very high level of reporting, but F1, you've got to beg, borrow, or steal to get anything from a driver or anyone higher up in a team, unless you've been in the sport 30 years and you've got an address book that's 4,000 pages big. Like in sports car racing, they want to give you your drivers. They want to give you everything. I remember rolling up last year out of nowhere, and Toyota says, "Hey, we've got Kenny Rovanpera available. Do you want to interview him?" Would I? Yeah. You know,
that's all I want to do, man. Thanks. Yeah, like it's so. I mentioned that because if you talked to the engineers there, and if you talked to any of the people running the teams or any of the people who are in charge of product, right? Particularly like tire people, you would, ask them and they got really excited. Their eyes got like dinner plates when you talked about two things. One was rally car, because everyone, I think, secretly loves rally car or doesn't secretly or openly loves rally car. And it would be all they would do if there were any way to really make a viable mega sport out of it. I think that's all anyone would really do. But the other thing that they would do is this. If you mentioned MotoGP, everyone kind of got that, like, their eyes blacked over and you heard like, whoa, like they love MotoGP. And MotoGP itself, I didn't watch the opener yet because I have a backlog of sporting events that's like 9 hours deep. But MotoGP, I think, has so much room to grow. And I really hope the move is to like get people on board with savvy marketing and meet them where they live. Because when you watch the ends of races, like TikTok, I don't know what they're paying for on TikTok, but do you know how many MotoGP finishes I've seen? Like tightly edited MotoGP finishes.
Oh yeah.
Where, you get total strangers who are in the comments and they're looking at it going, dude, what is this? How can I watch more of this? And you go, well, it's not all like that. But when it's like it, it's really good. So I don't know if that's part of the upcoming marketing push for MotoGP, but my feeling is that that's coming. And it's great because it's short, it's shorter, it's easier to digest, and it is viscerally just stunning. Like, it's just beautiful when you watch it.
I've said to many people, there is no motorsport on earth like MotoGP at the very, very peak of its existence. I mean, anyone's ever watched Rossi versus Lorenzo in Catalunya or Stoner versus Rossi in Laguna Seca, people know exactly what I'm talking about. They're going to be watching or listening to this, and they've seen it and they just wet themselves at how great it is. There is no motorsport series like it at its very best. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, you can sell that Vroom. I can
absolutely.
sell. I can sell you on Isle of Man. Now, Isle of Man's not MotoGP. Isle of Man is just its own insane world. But I can sell you on it. Now, do you want to watch the whole thing or consider the actual consequences of the Isle of Man race? No one wants to. But I can sell you on a TikTok of it. Now, if I could sell you on a TikTok of it, I could probably get you to another motorsport on two wheels. That's.
If Isle of Man is the entry level motorsport entree, I do not want to know what the main course may involve.
I'm gonna start you on heroin and we're gonna get you down to weed. That's really what we're gonna do.
Well, welcome to Max Mosley's negotiation tactics 101 here, folks. Yeah,
They work.
The iron fist wrapped in a velvet glove,
Yeah.
but very much so. I mean, we've got to talk a little bit about this season coming up, Spencer. And I mean, should we expect another season in 2025 where we get 7 different winners from 4 different teams? Because last year it was kind of a little bit of lightning in a bottle with the way the sport converted, or converged, I should say, really.
It feels. Does this season feel more wide open in terms of how's this? I feel like the season is more wide open in terms of potential pratfalls and disappointments than potential successes. And that may be just me as a natural pessimist looking at things and going,
Sure,
this team doesn't have this figured out, or this team doesn't have this figured out. But really, Mercedes could be crushing in terms of disappointment, in terms of their actual performance. Look at them and go, do you really see any reason for them to really have complete 100% solid reasons for optimism? There's some there. There's a lot. But I think there are more challenges than there are guarantees. That is the same, by the way, on the bright side for Red Bull, because what is to be made of the continued rapid active disassembly of the Red Bull space station? Like, they are falling from orbit very slowly in terms of dominance. That's what it is. Are they still up there? Yeah. Do they still have the best driver in the world? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do they have more questions than they have answers, especially looking forward? Absolutely.
I'd say so.
Yeah, they've had a lot of turnover behind the scenes. They've had obvious public turmoil. Can't really wait to see how Drive to Survive addresses certain elements of the 2024 storyline. You know what I mean? I don't.
Yeah.
I saw Christian Horner and I was like, yeah, I see we had some input over the edit. Because
just a smidge.
Just at the very least a smidge. Yeah, like that. That's all very interesting to me, and I'm being kind when I say interesting.
Yeah.
But that to me, like when you go through and then you go to McLaren, and McLaren, you go, I can always, what's your disaster scenario? And you go, you have 2 young drivers and you have high expectations. I don't need more than that to set you up for potential failure. So just, when you look at those 3 teams, the only one who comes through and you go, hey, we're good. We got things settled. Ferrari. But even then, Ferrari made a high price purchase, a big splashy purchase that if it doesn't go well, I think people will be genuinely and justifiably disappointed, because, what if Lewis isn't even what we expected 2025 Lewis to be? Like, what if that doesn't go as well as we want it to be? I don't think anyone's expecting him to instantly come in and be the number 2 driver in the world or the number 1 driver in the world again. But what is he going to be? That's a great question to me.
I'm not the only person that said this as well, because it's like, well, have we all forgotten that Lewis Hamilton got relatively beaten by George Russell last year in his age 39 season? I think a lot of, don't get me wrong, I'm sure Spencer, the Hamilton fandom is a very strong, passionate fan base that are incredibly supportive of Lewis, and understandably so in many aspects. But I think a lot of people have glossed over that convenient part of 2024 where they realized George Russell was just better last year across the board. And a part of me does wonder, Charles Leclerc is no slouch. He has beaten Carlos Sainz and Sebastian Vettel in that team before, driven 2 very, very good drivers out of that team. Like, this shouldn't be a walkover for Lewis, right? Right?
It shouldn't be. And I don't think it will be. That's the thing. I think at this point, Charles Leclerc, if I had to, if we're putting money on it, Leclerc to me is the number 1 driver. If this were anyone else, if we took Lewis's name off of it, because I think justifiably the potential of Lewis on his best day, even at his age, is so tantalizing that you might go, well, we're not talking about a 1-2 set. We're talking about a 1A, 1B driver. No, he's the number 2 driver here. Like, that's what I believe he is. In fact, I do not know if that is what he is being told by Roll. I do not know if that is what he thinks he is, but that's what he is. And I think over the course of the season that, should become apparent, because it's a huge season for Charles Leclerc. It's a massive season for him in terms of, validating potential, in terms of delivering on that potential. So, where does putting a potential volatile, situation with a justifiably respected and revered veteran in a legendary new outfit. We're doing a lot of really big photo ops and a lot of really good PR work. We have cool shots of Lewis in the coldest setup you've ever seen. The jacket, the fit, everything at Maranello in front of the Ferrari house. That's cool. That's cool. What's this going to look like on the track in terms of dynamics?
He just cut one of like the coldest like CM Punk with the WWE flag off the microphone promos to Time Magazine just the other week.
Yeah. And so that's all cool. We've done everything right so far. But I think we've also seen that, when Ferraris had two good drivers, you can get wildly varying results.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was a huge Seb guy when I was a content creator on YouTube. I know how that story ended painfully, to say the least. And it all looks great now in the suit and the jackets and the blazers and the great artistic shots and the using the phrase "I'm built different" unironically in Time Magazine, which is wild for a 40-year-old to come out and say, like it's no big thing, by the way. Like, my man is using 25-year-old terminology as at age 40 in his, 18th year in Formula One? I'm not here to have kids. I'm not here to have girlfriends. I'm here to win. And he sounds like an anime protagonist. And people are going to love this. And I'm not sure how it's going to turn out. And that is fascinating.
He's been working out on a planet with different gravity and eating a lot of muffins like Goku.
Oh, yeah. 100 times.
He got up at the announce table and started calling everybody ball frauds.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
put a hand on the shoulder of the F1 media at large.
Yeah. That is, it's one thing where I go, also too, you go, well, how much are you going to throw your weight around? He can throw his weight around, right? Like he can. That's Sir Lewis Hamilton. So what's he going to do in that respect? This is a cross sport thing. Aging veterans do not necessarily assume the same things about their age and talent that you do.
Yeah, one of the other big end stories that I think is going to get talked about a lot, Spence, is Kimi Antonelli making his Mercedes debut this year, 18 years of age, coming in. He had that free practice at Monza last year. Didn't go so well. Wrecked a car 10 minutes in. The amount of glaze from some of my peers in the industry for a guy wrecking an F1 car minutes into his debut was quite ratifying, because I think a lot of people clearly want this kid to be the next big thing. What do you think Kimi Antonelli's going to be in 2025?
Volatile. That feels like, just based on the little bit I've seen him drive, he drives like an 18-year-old with a very fast car. And that means that it's an interesting counterbalance to me in terms of George. Because George is going to, nobody exists in terms of an absolute value. You are in a context. And the context here is fascinating to me because of what he's going to have to be on that race team. If we're going to compete, and Mercedes is going to have to do this, they cannot win races with George alone. They're going to need teamwork, right? That's just a matter of, I think, where the car's at and their sort of engineering setup. So they're going to need good teamwork. They have an 18-year-old who's going to have to take orders and execute them accurately in terms of track position, in terms of where to be, what to do. That's fascinating. Objectively watching them, especially with somebody who we've seen him race, and he has the thing that, they talk about with football players, where they go, you can't teach a dog to bite, right? If they don't bite when they're puppies, they're not going to bite. He's clearly aggressive. He's clearly someone who will push a machine to its limits, and he is very aggressive and has the skill necessary. What I'm wondering is that temperamentally, how do you manage that in terms of a race team that doesn't have dominant machines, who they're going to have to work together?
Especially with George Russell, who's now going to be leader of that team, and is someone that, if Mercedes are good, maybe an outside shot at the championship this year.
Yeah.
I don't think they're a million miles away from that place. They did win 4 races last year. So, I mean, it could be very intriguing as to how that plays out. It wouldn't
be the first time that New Labour made a big push up the order, let's just say.
No kidding. Anything else in the midfield that you find intriguing, Spencer? Because, I mean, we got a lot of little things that add up here. You got Aston Martin and Adrian Newey over there making about £1 a minute in that team now. We've got Haas. They had the big upswing last year. Racing Bulls. I love that RJ's called it the Racing Bulls Anxiety Cup, which I think is very fair given the driver stability over there.
Yeah.
I mean, Williams have got Carter sides. What's leaping off the page to you in the midfield, Spencer?
In the midfield, to me, the most interesting team is Aston, and they're barely midfield, right? They're like upper midfield.
Yeah. They're kind of caught in this no man's land where they're just like, you have a bunch of 12-0 teams, a bunch of garbage, and then they're just kind of stuck in perpetual 7-5 land.
Yeah, they are mid with a lot of like upward mobility, a lot of potential for upward mobility. So I'm fascinated by what they could come up with. I know everyone's looking for Adrian Newey to, instantly create the next great race car, which is fair because he's been able to do that, man. Like, I don't think that's crazy when people go, well, it's going to take a while to show up. Yeah, but I understand the excitement. Yeah. Don't expect me to be completely rational about it. You just kind of, if I know an engineer's name or I know a designer's name, then that's really good because it means they've been successful in the past, but it's also bad because I'm going to confuse it for magic.
Yes.
That's what I'm going, and I think I'm not, and that's somebody I'm pretty skeptical, right? Like I know I'm going to do that and rein in my enthusiasm. An average fan will go, oh, Adrian Newey's got this. Adrian Newey's, there's just like 1,000 fans who just are like, we got it in the bag, man. Newey's on board. And you have to explain to him, you go, these are big pieces and it takes a while to get them rolling.
Yeah. I mean, especially given, this is the last year of this regulation set. We've got a brand new set of rules coming in next year. They're going to be dividing up resources and management. There's a whole heap of that on the table. Aston's had a big restructuring at the top, new team principal. Their old one, Dan Fallows, has been stuffed into a locker somewhere at Silverstone after just going backwards the last year and a half.
A very plush closet. It is
Aston
right. It's F1, right? When they're like, oh, he's been shunted. He's been moved aside. And you go, yeah, no, they'll buy out your whole contract and you'll get the rest of the year to look for a job. And,
no, he has to go at home and not work. Or maybe he gets to design an Aston Martin.
I will pay you precisely this much to go away.
The dream, man.
Real. Who doesn't want to get paid not to go to work at the end of the day? That's just that's when you've made it. Like, so if there's a pro tip for those guys in life, be a little bit out of your depth designing an F1 car, and then you'll get paid not to come to work. It's the best way to go in life, clearly.
I will give you 14 million pounds to walk out of this room right now. Oh, take it. Go.
Absolutely, man.
Kimi Räikkönen in 2009. I was like, I could go to work, but these snowmobiles look awfully tempting.
Another reason why Kimi is the most relatable driver. What did you do after you crashed out of Monte Carlo? Right after Monaco, you're like, oh, I went and I got drunk on a boat. Relatable, absolutely relatable.
Like, not just a boat, his boat.
My boat with my boys, right? Like, what's the ideal setup? I've got my guys and a couple of ladies, and we're going to sit in a hot tub, and I'm going to strip off this fire suit and get hammered. Like, yeah.
I'll worry about the debrief later. For now, let's party.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's also why I feel like Yuki Tsunoda is the most Raikkonen-compatible driver of our generation. And I mentioned Anxiety Cup because between him and rookie Isaac Hadjar, and you have Arvid Lindblad, 17-year-old phenom of the Red Bull Junior team, waiting in the wings for an opportunity, you're just thinking, oh boy, we're looking at either a one-and-done situation with Hadjar or Yuki Tsunoda is about to get pushed out through no fault of his own.
This is leading to my dream, which is Yuki Tsunoda rally champion. Yuki Tsunoda rally champion.
Oh, the fun.
Him, it's hang on, blow for blow.
Could you just imagine the radio feed of him blasting down a back road at full speed? There'd just be one long beep.
Mohammed Ben Sulayem would not find that man fast enough for the
bankrupt Honda Motor Company.
Yeah. I mean, it's a rally budget. They've got $7. He's going to incur thousands in profanity fines.
I guess that gets us to our next question. It's just like Mohammed bin Sulayem's tenure at FIA president started like it was going to be something, and then it's turned into a whole lot of something else. I mean, how past the point of an untenable situation have we gotten in 2025?
Why find an executive who knows how to pick their battles? That's it. Find an executive who knows how to pick. An important exercise in power is knowing when not to use it. Right? It's finite, it's limited, it's gas. It will burn. Be careful what you burn it on. And it's very funny. I think I can explain his reign in F1 in fuel mileage terms. Right? He didn't manage it well. And I think he's going to run out of gas before he gets over the line because he picks stupid battles. He picks stupid battles no one cares about. And the more you do that, the more you turn fans off and the more you turn the drivers off. Like that's the other thing is that F1 needs these drivers to be engaged and they need them to promo the sport because in terms of a growth market, my suspicion is that the United States has plateaued somewhat and they're not seeing quite the bump that they had 2 to 3 years ago. And that's going to upset everybody because that means you're back on slow growth. And slow growth is fine for the long-term health of the sport. How many people who are receiving paychecks to do a job are concerned about the long term? The answer is 0, right? And if you're going to do that, don't become the nag who's overseeing the sport, nitpicking little things like profanity and making public missteps again and again on things that you should have buttoned down, right? Everybody should be David Stern. That's it. Like when somebody goes, man, David Stern ran the NBA like it was a mafia. I'm like, yeah, how much did you hear? How much did you hear? That thing was a machine. It ran buttoned up. Okay. Yeah. It worked. Okay. Can I tell you my favorite David Stern story? No,
go for it, please.
Okay. This is Tom Ziller's story. Okay. So Tom Ziller is a longtime NBA writer, still writes a newsletter. It's great. You should subscribe to it. And Tom Ziller got his start as an anonymous blogger. No one knew his name. Tom Ziller is, in fact, a pseudonym. It is not his real name. It is his pen name, and he still uses it because he's got a whole other day job and has for like 20 years.
Wow.
So Tom was at a thing. It's like an NBA, like summer league kind of thing, like pretty minor. No reason for an exec to really kind of like hardcore prep for who he was going to see there. And David Stern is there. And David Stern is doing the handshake line. And Tom Ziller, horrified, finds himself in the handshake line with David Stern. And David Stern, going down the line, looks at him and goes, Tom Ziller. He already knows his name. Because, mind you, Tom doesn't have a picture in public. Tom doesn't have a picture online. And he knows who he is. And he shakes his hand and goes, well, nice to meet you, Mr. Stern. And David Stern leans in and goes, I know that's not your real name. And then... That's what a commish should be. That's what he should be.
And leave no stone unturned.
Be prepared, pick your battles, and keep your big fights quiet. That's what they haven't done.
It feels like MBS has put neon signs and look at me fireworks over every single fight that he has picked, and he has never seen a fight he wouldn't pick.
He is the first boss in every video game with the neon lights and the big fuck me here button as to where the weakness is.
Yeah, like, and how many of these has he definitively won? Like, this is to me it's a complete misunderstanding of what a sports bureaucrat should be. You are very fortunate to be in the space you are in, and you can exercise considerable power and yield significant profit both for yourself and your partners. Why are you not shutting up? Business. Be quiet.
As Max in our chat quite rightly says, don't be the main character in racing. It never goes well in the end. Yeah. Never, ever, ever. Don't be the main character. It never works out for you.
It's like an Elmore Leonard novel. Elmore Leonard novel, there's one kind of character who survives and one who dies. The one who gets killed is always the one who's like, yeah, I'm a badass. And you know who doesn't die? The cool guy. Yeah. Whether you're like white hat or black hat, as long as you're cool, you're making it to the end of the book. My advice would be get cool.
Yeah. Adam Silver in a nutshell, baby. Just before we go as well, Spence, we normally pre-season, we always lay out some predictions. We get very competitive about this on this show. Like as a humble brag, I've correctly predicted the last 2 Le Mans winners. It's a humble brag I will take to my grave.
That's good though.
So we're gonna put you in the same camp here. We've got a few questions to quick fire to give you. So, and we're going to put you in our guest pick section alongside the rest of us.
We don't have headwear. We don't expect that. We don't have a budget.
No, of course not. Maybe a championship belt if we get more budget on Patreon. Who knows? But
or if your brother walks in the room.
Yeah, that is a thing. He owns a Universal title belt, and he will rub it in my face. He's an Eagles fan. That's what they do.
Go Birds.
Exactly. Go Birds. Oh, that killed me. My tongue's on fire just saying that. And I say that as a Patriots fan. That hurts even more. Okay. Big one, Spence. Drivers' champion. Who do you reckon?
Am I going to do it? Oh, I'm going to do it. I want to see Charles win. win. So I'm going to take
Charles Leclerc
Yes.
title. My man.
Yeah, I say that. This is, by the way, if you want to know, like, head pick, it's like a 60% head pick and a 90% heart pick. Because, sad boy Charles has been such a meme, such a running gag over the past 4 or 5 years. The idea of sad boy Charles winning it moves me too much for not to make the pick.
Entirely understandable. I want it to be a Charles Leclerc year. He's come close a couple of times. This might be the first year he's had a car from start to finish that could actually do it. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Do you think Ferrari take the constructors, or do you have somebody else for the constructors title?
Well, if I've got Charles in the driver's title, then I might as well go ahead and double up. I will say,
full emotional Ferrari.
I know it's
pick.
a fool. It's a fool, but at the same time, that would be banking on. I have to bank. All right, I'm gonna backtrack.
Oh,
my better angels are pulling me back. I will say that McLaren for constructors. I think that's the safe bet. I made one dangerous bet. Let's make a safe bet. I think McLaren's overall consistency and the way they've got this particular package dialed in. I'll go with house money, and I'll say McLaren.
That's entirely reasonable. Nobody picks Ferrari with their head. No one. It is a purely emotional or dick thought. You don't pick them with your brain. Like, you pick them because you want them to win.
I picked them because I want to do this.
It just hits different.
The narcotic, Ferrari fan therapy, the church, all phrases we've used in the show to describe Ferrari anguish. Spencer, behind the big four, who finishes fifth in the constructors? Aston or somebody else?
Yeah, this is where I do something stupid, but it's low stakes, so I'm going to do something stupid. Yeah, you ready? Haas. Let's go.
Yeah,
let's go. USA. Yeah.
The gritty.
Nothing to be patriotic about right now, so I'm going to make Haas our thing. We're tying it all on Haas.
Half American, half Burnby, half Branbury. We love to see it. Yeah, Haas for fifth. Do you think there'll be a mid-season driver replacement?
Yeah, I do. Now I don't know what it is, but I just say based on the current carnivorous attitudes of most race teams toward their drivers, it seems like right now we have a glut of young drivers, and that's good. That's great for the sport. You know who it's bad for? Anyone who so much as stumbles. So
yes,
I would go ahead and put blanket for the field driver replacement. If I were gonna go particulars, I'm not gonna do that because there's so many possibilities.
All I'll say is Jack Doohan is a pretty untenable spot at Alpine, and he just got here.
Yeah, and like Alpine is one of those things where I go, I don't even know how they make decisions anymore at Alpine. So if you told me, right, like if you said
darts at a wall, honest to God, at this point,
and what better dart than, I don't know, try a new driver.
Yeah, exactly. The dart is Italian. It tastes of delicious carbonara. And Franco Colapinto is the walking definition of the guy they tell you not to worry about. It's, especially when you compare him to Jack doing his new military buzz cuts, which I thought was hilarious. When I saw him at the Autosport Awards debut that, and I was like, oh no, Jack, honey, what have you done? That was different. Last one, over or under 6.5 different winners.
Let's go over. Let's go. Why would I be anything but optimistic about the potential chaos of the season moving forward? I'm going to try to manifest over.
I love the fun. Spence, it's been an absolute pleasure. Before we get out of here, unrestricted, the floor is yours. Anything outside of racing, anything important you want to talk about, places we can find you if we haven't already. The floor is yours, Spencer. Play us out, my friend. It's all yours.
Thank you. I would first of all suggest that you subscribe to the Channel 6 newsletter, which is Holly and Anderson and I's twice weekly newsletter about all things various sport, gaming. Like, it's a lifestyle blog, but in newsletter form with a heavy accent on sports, games, and whatever else we find interesting. We will be writing about F1 there. Also, you can find us on the Shutdown Fullcast. That is Ryan, Andy, Jason, Kirk, Holly Anderson, and myself doing our best to not talk about college football on a college football podcast, but we do sometimes touch the sport, particularly in season. But, don't let that dissuade you if you're an automotive person, because we talk about all kinds of bullshit as well.
Spencer Hall, the greatest guest we've ever had on this podcast. We just cooked for nearly 50 minutes, and it was absolutely seamless. Thank you so much for coming on our Pokey Little Motoring podcast. You're welcome back anytime, my friend. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, y'all. Thanks, Cam. Thanks, RJ. Thanks, Dre.